I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Hi, everybody. Ron here from The Truth About Addiction. Today we have a couple of guests on. Experience and Strength, Scotty and Josh. Welcome to The Truth About Addiction. Exciting to have you on. And Scotty's down in Tasmania. Josh is up here in Queensland. And they've formed this incredible little idea. Everything starts off as an idea, and then it becomes a bit of a dream, and then it becomes a passion, and then it becomes an obsession, and then you start making things work. That's what really happens for people like
Very
us.
true.
So I don't know who wants to talk. You talk wherever you want. This is your 40 minutes of fame, to be honest. I'm here as the mediator to make sure you don't get into too much fighting, and keep your hands up at all times and protect yourself at all times. Okay, question. What is experience and strength?
Ronnie, awesome to be back on your podcast again, mate. So, thank you very, very much. What is experience strength? Awesome question. Experience strength, I guess, was born, Ronnie, on the back of, my story coming out of a detox and a rehab. And I guess starting to put the pieces of my life back together. And I've shared my story on your podcast before with regards to, there were some pretty dark times. And I left that facility, Ron, and I found myself, I guess, floundering a little bit. When I was in the facility, I was surrounded by people that could give me what I needed when I needed it. But when I left the facility, I guess flounder's not the right word, but, I was out in the big wide world on my own. And there were a number of things I wanted to tick off, Ron, to, I guess, get back to some form of normality. I made some promises to myself, and one of those promises I made was to get myself back to coaching as at the highest level as I possibly could, AFL. I know that's not your jam, Ron. It's AFL for me, mate. But, I was lucky enough to land on my feet with a club up there in Queensland. And look, long story short, they had an event at this club, Ronnie, one night, and the guest speaker wasn't able to turn up. He got caught in an accident on the bridge, and we had sponsors there. And I guess a couple of people at the footy club had heard my story, had heard me share my story at a camp, and they got stuck for a speaker. And they just, all of a sudden, I found myself on a stage, Ron. I didn't have any time to prepare, so I didn't have any time to do what this alcoholic used to do and tell Furbies and lies. I was given a microphone and a spotlight was put on me, and I jumped up on a stage in front of a group of people I didn't know, and I just told my story, and I just shared my experience and my strength, hence the name. It still hadn't been born by that stage, Ronnie. I did one thing in that talk. I just put my name up on the overhead with my mobile number, and I just said to the audience that if anyone's relating to what I'm saying about my addiction issues and my journey, look, just feel free to, give me a buzz. My program is about sharing my experience, strength, and trying to carry the message. And I felt really good. Those people who know me hate the fact, know that I hate being the centre of attention. I love being the centre of attention. But I don't know, Ron, something happened at 3 o'clock the next morning that was a little bit life-changing for me. Someone that would, in the audience, had obviously identified and related to the story, that obviously put their my number in their phone, and the phone rang, and this person was in a bit of trouble, Ron. They were in a certain area up there in Queensland that's known for playing up a little bit, and, was not in a good way. The way that I live my life with the program that I work is a program of action and honesty and humility. And I went and grabbed this guy, and I took him to where he needed to go, and I was able to give him a little bit of help. And, fortunately for this particular individual, last time I heard, he's on the right track, and experience strength was born. And from there, it's kind of just mushroomed, Ron, into so many different areas and so many different services, and making sure that we're doing the next right thing. Behind me, you see a little slogan, a little catchphrase. I struggle with this disease of addiction having a stigma attached to it. I firmly believe in my heart of hearts that this disease is a disease. It's not a disgrace. It's not my fault, but it's my responsibility, and people get judged. Me, I'm the perfect example. I'm sure that anyone that's had these issues will say the same thing. And my goal is to help people, and my goal is to smash that stigma that's attached to addiction, Ronnie. So I guess that's how it was born, mate.
Okay. So what makes it different from the usual support systems? You know, there's a million support systems. There's a million social media gurus now that are drug and alcohol experts and, you know, geniuses. And I can't help but smile. I've been doing this a little bit of time, you know, 45 years now. And I still don't class myself as an expert. So I don't know where the expertise genius part comes into it. But what I am interested in is what makes your company different from the others.
Awesome question. And my direct answer to you, Ronnie, is we're not pretending to be anything that we're not in any way, shape, or form. We're not qualified, although we have people in our team that are. We're not qualified. We're not doctors. We're not registered psychologists or psychiatrists. We're not pretending to be something that we're not. We're not trying to tell people what they are or they aren't. We have a group of people that have real life stories and experience and have been able to, in their own way and in their own time, navigate through this incestuous disease and come out the other end from the dark to the light, which is a good segue for Joshy and Joshy's brand. But we're not pretending to be something that we're not. We are honest, we're real, we're raw, and at the end of the day, we are just sharing our experience and strength. I get what you say. If you scroll through social media, Ronnie, and you have a look, you know, you can get a hypnotist who's going to fix you in 24 hours. You can get a guru who's going to send you some kind of herbal tea. You know, what's out there is a Pandora's box of information. We're not trying to say that we are better than any other solution. We're just saying that this is who we are and this is what's worked for us. And you know, take it and leave it. We're living proof. And you know, I'll throw over to Joshy because the dark and the light is something that, you know, Joshy's pretty passionate about. And we've branched off into so many different arms. And the Two Wolves brand's an amazing story about that, how that started, and the ethos and the story behind it. But just coming back to your question, Ronnie, and pulling it apart a little bit, you know, what's the difference from the other organisations? Just recently, myself and a couple of members of the Experience Strength team had the opportunity to get together, Ronnie, over a weekend and do some research on, you know, facilities and detox and rehabs and other people that are out there saying that they're trying to pass the message on, trying to do the right thing. And navigating through that weekend, I don't know how many calls we made. Josh, you'll call me out whether I'm telling furbies or not, but there was quite a few calls that we made to institutions and organisations and I guess people that are saying that they're willing to help. And we just hit brick wall, Ron, after brick wall, Ron, after brick wall. I don't know about you, Ron, but it seems to me that, you know, anybody that's helping people that are in active addiction don't think that addiction is after 5 o'clock Monday to Friday and Saturday and Sundays. There's a pin put in it, for fuck's sake, mate. Like, I don't know about your story, boys, but my addiction was 24/7. And when I need help, I need help. And one thing that we pride ourselves on at Experience Strength, and I can back this up, you know, one of the things, if their phone rings, if somebody needs help, we're there, regardless of the time, regardless of whether or not we can help them navigate the system, get them in or out of an institution. We'll be on the other end of the phone. We'll try and help and give real life experience and advice. But it was an amazing experience to go through. But I guess, you know, we're trying to get people out of the dark to the light, which is the segue for Joshy in the Two Wolves brand, you know. So that was an amazing experience to go through, Ron, but we're just not trying to be anything other than real, mate. That's our point of difference.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'm like when it comes to what motivates us. It's always got to be carrying a message and supporting and helping people. If we're motivated by anything else, we're being frauds, I think. My own personal opinion.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Joshy,
It's me.
your shot at 30 seconds of fame.
Well, thanks very much for inviting me on, first of all. I sat in a rehab, and towards the end of each program that we would do, if there was time left over, we would actually run through a couple of these podcasts, and that would have been close to 2 years ago now. And I always wondered, you know, whether or not I'd ever have something that, you know, to offer that would bring me onto a podcast like this, and this one in particular, because there's a lot of people that I know that have done this, and it's a bit of a bucket list ticking off moment, which is great. So thank you very much for that. Yeah, the Two Wolves brand for me, the concept started when I walked into the rehab April the 8th, 2024 at around about 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was the omitting period where we go in and they do all the things they need to do before you put into rehab and checking everything. And this guy came up to me who you know very well, Ron, and he has two wolves tattooed on each of his hands.
Yep.
And
where you got it
you
from
do.
too.
Yep. And I don't know, for whatever reason, he came around to me and he looked me in the eye and he shook my hand, and I was at the worst point in my life, really. Physically and mentally, I was just gone. And he looked me in the eyes and he said, "It's going to be okay." And for some reason, I believed him. For some weird reason, I believed this guy, and I didn't know a thing about this guy, and he's now a major influence in my life in a lot of ways to this day. And that was just one of the many things that I did that was something good that turned into a really good thing for my life and a good opportunity for me in reference to getting better. He would tell me about the tale of the two wolf story, a few weeks later, the good wolf and the bad wolf. And he basically used my life as an example of, how often I'd fed the bad wolf as a real life example of, if you do bad things, you're going to feel bad. You're going to get bad opportunities. Bad things are going to happen. As opposed to if you do good things are going to happen and good opportunities are going to come up, and you're going to be able to be of good to to people around you. Mate, that's literally started with me going, you know what, that's a really simple message that no therapist has ever told me. It's all been about these complex things that I simply can't, as much as I try,
pathway, the endorphins and the
Yep. And it started with the next day I made my bed. That's the first thing I did. And I've not stopped doing that. And everything has grown from that. And it sounds really cliche in reference to, get up and make your bed first thing in the morning. But that's where that theory started in my head of what can I do? Like, I'm at such a low point. Where can I start? And that was where I started. And it's now turned into, I help a hell of a lot of people. I've been on the phone 6 times today talking to people about not just addiction, but the things in their life that are, going through their heads that they need help with. And it all stems back to, the way that we think. And, what Scotty did talk about before is like, there's no university degree that can match lived experience, I don't think. And that's what we're here to do. And that's where my passion is in reference to talking about the two wolves inside all of us, talking about how to feed the good one, and how to limit the bad one. And that's turned into such a cool opportunity for me. And that's really how I live my life today. And it's really simple.
Yeah, 100%. I've been living by the two wolves story for 40 years, and I understand it, and I've fed both in recovery. It's just because you might stop taking a drink or a drug doesn't mean that our thinking problem hasn't stopped. And that's where I think experience strength comes into it. For me, we're not addressing the chemical or the actions, it's the mental state that people are going through, because I believe experience strength can help people that aren't in addiction, that aren't in chemical abuse, that aren't in, it's a way of life. It's got to become a way of life. You've got to have a set of principles. You've got to have some grounded, in the morning you wake up, I put my feet on the ground, I do my breaths, I do my gratitudes, then I read some certain literature, and then I have a shower. I don't jump up, have a quick piss, run out the door, and think, what's going on? I have structure, something that the human being of today, a lot of people don't have. And that's why there's so much confusion. And then we start putting a chemical in our body to cope with that confusion. Or we start gambling or sex, or, there's a billion addictions, But what we do is we start self-harming, unbeknownst to ourselves, to avoid the noise. I was talking to someone this morning. I was doing some demands work that I do, and he said, "Oh, yesterday it was fucked. It was raining. I was bored. I was just shit." I said, "You know what? Yesterday I laid in bed. I worked in the garden for 6 hours in the rain. Had a shower, laid in my bed, and thought, how wonderful is this? It's raining. It's blissful. I'm at peace. I'm on my own." And that's just the difference between my mindset and his mindset. We're both clean, We're both in recovery. We're both human beings. We're both men. But my ability to accept the things I can't change and to be comfortable with the surroundings and not try to fight it is where I don't feed my wolf. So he was feeding his black wolf yesterday. He was discontent, annoyed, unmanageable, like, I'm bored. How can you be bored? To me, having some quiet time is a way of releasing, because the Dalai Lama was asked once, what do you get from meditation? And he laughed. And he said, you get nothing. And they said, what do you mean? He said, well, you get nothing from meditation. They said, well, why do you meditate? He said, that's a better question. He said, it's what I lose. I lose anxiety. I lose possession. I lose guilt. I lose anger. I lose fear. He said, it's not what I get. He said, it's what I lose. And that's what I believe experience strength's got to be about. And I know both is personally that it's about teaching people how to live inside their own skin, because we have a thinking problem.
Ronnie, mate, you've just nailed it, right? You should have asked yourself the question at the beginning, because it's funny, Ron. I want to recall something. When I first ventured out of the Paradise Centre that I went to for a period of time,
Paradise Centre.
I caught up with you, Ronnie, and had brekkie, and you gave me some advice, and I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of that on a public podcast, but I've never forgotten those words, and I've never forgotten the advice that was given. And I guess one of the themes was when Experience Strength started, because, I make sure that I check the motive of what Experience Strength is about. I must do that, because as a recovered alcoholic, if my defects kick back in, my motives sometimes can get skewed. So I make sure that we're surrounded by people that will hold us accountable for our motives. And one of the things that you gave me was the thought process around, it's the only disease that's out there where one of the symptoms tells you lies. And it took me a long time to get my head around that, Ronnie. And the thinking part of feeling restless and needing to medicate that's attached to this program. And where I'm going with it is the comment that you made around Experience Strength being able to, diversify and help people that may not necessarily have the drug or the alcohol or the sex addiction or the gambling addiction, but just general mental health. And you also guided me along the lines of just let it evolve, let it be what it's meant to be, allow it to go in the direction that it's meant to go without me trying to drive it. And look, I did try and drive it, Ron, for about 3 months.
Sure did.
I did. I tried to drive it for 3 months, mate, and it was like being in a train wreck. But the moment I jumped out and got a couple of people to drive the train and got a couple of people to get involved, it has evolved. And Experience Strength just recently was forced. And when I say forced, we made a decision to do it, but we had an inquiry, and it was somebody that was in dire straits. And, the mother and the father were pulling their hair out. They tried everything they possibly could. Institutions, waiting lists were, 8,000 years long, and 8,000 pieces of paper and a lot of money. And this individual that I'm referring to didn't have time. They were really, really hectic. And we went through the process, and we were able to help, and we were able to support, and we were able to do what I'm really proud of initially. But it also led to, one thing that I was, hoping that this conversation would lead to. But one thing that it led to was for Experience Strength to design some tools. We hear it all the time. We need tools. We need tools to be able to use in early recovery. And we've designed tools not just designed for people that may be coming out of or in early recovery, but tools that people genuinely can need. And the reason that we developed these tools was A, what we were asked to do, but B, because my program says practice these principles in all my affairs. It doesn't just say the affairs that I want to do from time to time. It says all my affairs. I missed the word fucking all for about 20 years. Seriously. I read it as practice these principles when Scotty won. And it never worked. But when I read it, when I read it the right way, all these affairs, and I fucking had a light bulb moment and went, Jesus, hang on a minute. We've come up with some cool stuff, Ron. Like, this bloke, Josh, him and I hooked up because his skill set is my demise and my skill set is his, and we bounce off each other. We hold each other accountable. Like Joshy's sitting there a good cut of a young bloke because he eats well and he exercises. I'm sitting here as a bald fat man because I don't. But we've come up with these concepts, Ronnie. They're called Joshy's Jam. And they're little programs, they're 1 hour sessions that can be done online, which is exactly what Josh was talking about, what you were talking about. We have to learn to live all over again, making your bed, eating properly, exercise, routine, the gratitudes, the humility. So we've come up with these awesome tools that anyone can access at any time, any location, online with a group of real life, lived experience people. So that if you've been and done a 90-day detox and rehab and you've gone through a transition house, you're not alone. There are tools that you can continue to have on your long road of recovery. And that's just one area, Ronnie. I'm really passionate about it because I think that we've got a problem. I think that we have facilities out there. We're sick enough. They get us well enough to get us sick enough to get us well enough to get us sick enough.
Mm.
And I'm really passionate about it because at the end of the day, it's for this alcoholic. Alcohol's my drug of choice. For this alcoholic, this is the rest of my life. It's a daily reprieve. And I have to work a program and I have to have the right tools and I have to surround myself with the right people. And I just think, Ronnie, that we're struggling. And I know you agree because you and I have robust conversations about this all the time. But any organisation out there, Experience Strength, it doesn't matter which one it is, if they're real and if they are offering the tools, it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing to witness somebody that arrived with us that's used these tools and have got a long way to go, but, at least is on the right track and is not going to be left behind because tick, 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 90 days are up, see you later. That's not what this is about.
That's a big flaw, massive flaw in the system.
There is.
You've run out of money, you've run out of information. See you later.
That's it.
And we've run out of care because we really don't care.
That's it.
Yeah.
In my home state of down here in Tassie, I'm not sure, I don't want this to be quoted, but, I believe that there was either state or federal funding that ran out for our last facility down in the south. Now, there are other organisations here. I'm not saying that they're not, but this was, I guess, the last of one that you could actually book in and go to. And that's no longer there. Now, where are those people going to? Because the same problems in Victoria, the same problems in New South Wales, Queensland, all around Australia. And if we've got one state that's shut down, I'm not sure about anybody else's recovery, but just because there isn't a facility doesn't mean our problem's stopped. Our problem is getting more and more and more and more. And the stigma that's attached to this area of alcoholism or drug addiction is still the elephant in the room. People are happy to talk about the mental health side of things. We've come a long way in lots of different areas, and there are some awesome things that are happening with regards to mental health, but there's still people scared to stand up and say, hey, I'm Scotty, but I'm a hectic alcoholic, because the stigma that is attached to the disease of addiction is raw, real, and live. It happens to me all the time, and it happens to people I talk to all the time. I can't do anything about what happened yesterday, Ronnie. And you said this to me as well, mate. You were the one that told me this little story. Scotty, you can't drive down the highway, you muppet, if you're looking in the revision mirror. You have to look out the windscreen. I can't do anything about what happened yesterday. I won't forget it, and I won't forget it, and I won't trivialise it, and I won't pretend that it didn't happen, but it won't define Scott today, and it won't define, hopefully, Scott tomorrow.
Yeah, it's just a lesson. The Buddha says, yesterday's dead and tomorrow's not born. All you have is today.
Yeah.
Right here, right now. You know me, I'm a bit of a smarty aleck, and when I do a big public speaking thing and there's a bunch of corporate people and they're judging my past, I have been known to say at the end of my whole talk, and for you people out there that are judging me, next time you pray pray for me so I can be perfect like you. And you see people's heads drop down everywhere.
Yeah.
That's one of my famous quotes that I say all the time.
Yeah.
I
Because
love that.
there is
Love
no
it.
judge, and whoever is the judge is not on this planet. I mean, I like the idea of experience strength because you're using people with lived experience. You're using people that are committed, they're dedicated, they're passionate. Now, anything I know that's successful, you've got to be dedicated, committed, passionate, consistent, reliable, transparent, honest, respectful, accepting. And if you've got those demands and you're working those in your program, which you are in your own life, and you then teach them to other people, we are carrying the message forward. And that's what our experience and our strength is our message, is our past. We don't downplay our past. We're not proud of it. But without our past, we're not who we are today. And that's why experience strength can smash the stigma, because it's like breaking into a house you used to live in. There's no one there. You can break into my old house. I don't live there no more. When you're judging my past, you're breaking into a house I used to live in. I don't live there anymore. Go for it.
Yeah.
Go. And that's why the transparency with both of you guys coming out and saying, well, I was an alcoholic, I was a whatever. This is my story. It's transparency. What that does, that kills the no-sayers and the gossipers. Because when they've got nothing to gossip about, they keep their mouth shut. That's why experience and strength will go places, because other institutions, and I know I've been working in the industry for 1982 was my first job in drug and alcohol rehabilitation centres.
Yes.
Oh, you don't look that old, Ronnie. You don't look that old.
I was three.
I wasn't born.
Yeah. And, we had no government money. We had nothing. We had nothing. We walked around with spoons in our back pockets with tape on them, so when people would go into fits and seizures, we could depress their tongue so they didn't swallow their tongue and choke to death.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way. And the reason we've come a long way, and I'm saying this sincerely, is because people that came before us covered out loud so that people didn't have to suffer in silence.
Yeah.
And I believe that's what experience and strength is about, be covering out loud. What I'd like to know, this is the question that comes to my head, is like, when did the Two Wolves brand come into the picture, and how did you get into a partnership connection?
Yep. So I was actually in the same rehab that Scotty had attended before me, and he was doing what they call give back. So that's when, the previous patients come in and give back to the current ones and talk about, what's going on the outside and how to basically deal with it all. And I was actually bouncing an AFL footy at the time, and when Scotty and I think it was just Scotty and someone else walked in, and I don't know, there was just something there. We just started talking about football because I'm from Victoria originally, and he's obviously from Tassie. And that's literally how this started. And I do remember that he said, if once you get out, if you can get some clean time up, I really want to have a chat with you about a few things. And by the time we'd actually done that and engaged in that conversation, I'd actually already started the clothing brand Two Wolves. I didn't mention that before. That's what Two Wolves is. I started that about a week after I left rehab, because that's just the kind of person that I am. And when I harness that addictive personality and addictive energy into something good, I can really make things happen. So basically what I was doing is I was just selling my clothing online, and we had a bit of a chat about obviously the message behind it, and then that sparked this greater conversation and greater platform that experience strength can be in reference to helping people, because I don't have a big budget or all this money. Like, I can't open a rehab or a transition houses and all these things, but what I can do is I can be really creative in my approach to providing some really smart business models and scaling models and things like that, where we can grow. And Two Wolves ties into experience strength because it's about trying to, feed the good and eliminate the bad. And experience strength is a platform where we talk about mental health and addiction, and Two Wolves is a movement of clothing where we want to talk about basically mental health and addiction and feeding the good wolf on a daily basis. And it's just one of the many things I've had through going through one of the hardest experiences of my life, committing to a rehab, doing the full program, then committing to recovery and doing that in a way that's thorough. it's just one of the many things that have come from it is an opportunity like this.
So
the other thing too, Ronnie, is morphing together. You know, experience, strength. Well, I was just about to say I keep doing that. We don't want to leave anybody behind. So experience, strength was born because of sharing experience, strength. You know, Tools has got a, you know, that message that's visual with a clothing range, and it's awesome stuff too. Like, Josh won't compromise on quality in any way, shape, or form. So it's good stuff. And the other thing that we don't want to do and won't do, because we'll hold each other accountable with the other family members that we have involved with experience, strength, and that is that if somebody is like a Josh, that they've got a concept, they've got an idea, they've got something that is going to be doing something good or the next right thing, falls underline what that theme is. Experience, strength is starting to become a platform for people to bring ideas and concepts to launch from. So I see experience, strength having a number of sub brands on things moving forward, as long as, you know, the principles are in line with what we're trying to achieve, as long as it lines up with regards to the journey. Because, you know, I've learned that if we do what we need to do, you know, these promises that we get told come true, and one of those is that you can have freedom to do what you want to do and be passionate about it. You know, I'm not going to be jumping back in and doing things. I want to just do things differently. I want people to have an idea and a dream. It gives them purpose. But as long as that is practicing and giving away that experience and helping the next person that may be feeding the dark wolf, and, you know, bring it to the table. Let's have a chat. If you've got the runs on the board, who knows where it can lead. I don't know, Ron. The other thing too that we've experienced just recently, and again, this comes back to the initial advice that you gave me: just let it evolve. Ron, you said something to me a long time ago, and it stuck. You know, I think I'm going to quote you, and I'm sure you'll call me out if I'm wrong, but one of the things that you mentioned and you spoke to me about and we were passionate about was, you know, purpose. And you kept on using the word purpose. And Joshy and I and the other people that are involved with Experience Strength, I relate back to this conversation with you all the time. You said something along the lines of, you know, that people get sick enough to get well enough, and then they don't get sick enough. And some of the reasons that they get sick next time over is because lots of reasons, but one of them could be, you know, purpose and trying to live life on life's terms without the right tools. And, you know, let it evolve. So there was an Experience Strength talk with a huge business in Australia where they just asked Experience Strength to go along and to tell our story. And on the back of telling our story, we got called back, Ron. And I thought, gee, I had no idea what it was about. We just got an invite back, you know. And sitting with a group of executives. And when I'm talking about big business, I'm talking they employ thousands of people right around Australia. They said straight out across a board table, you know, do you have anybody at Experience Strength, or can you get hold of people through Experience Strength? I didn't really know how to ask the question either, but, you know, do you have anybody out there that may be, you know, interested in trying to get some work, you know, get back into the workforce? I was a bit taken back, Ron, to start with, because I'm an alcoholic and I'm an addict, and I defaulted back to, well, shit, guys, I'm not going to be able to provide you much because your stage one of your recruitment process is a police check. I said, I don't know about the other people in recovery, but this recovered alcoholic, if, you know, you have a look at my police record, I'm not getting past stage one. So a lot of people that I'm talking with and dealing with and associate with, you know, the symptoms of their disease is not understanding the difference between right or wrong. And another symptom is that behaviours are socially unacceptable. So it can come, and a lot of the time there is going to be someone with a police record, but you're asking me to provide you with good people, and these people are good people, but they're not getting past step one because of your recruitment process. And the other thing in that particular set of circumstances that we spoke about was that, you know, how do you go about navigating somebody to come to an interview with a big business who has a police record, who is practicing an honest-based program, and there is a stigma attached to the fact of the disease that they've had. They're terrified. They're not going to perform in the interview, you know? And I guess at the end of the day, long story short, it bubbled to the surface and they thought about it. We spoke at length and they said, well, okay, if you can tick off a few of these little requests that we've got from the logistical political correctness world, if you endorse them, if they jump through whatever it is that you need them to jump through, you know, we will give them a second chance. We will park their pass, provided they tick A, B, and C, which A, B, and C was designed by Experience Strength. Now, to wind this up, because I know I'm banging on, but to sit with somebody in an interview with a large organisation and for them to have the fear removed of their past and their police record and the fact that they've been to a detox and a rehab before they even entered the interview room, with an employer that was proactively wanting to give that particular individual a second chance, was one of the most empowering things in my recovery. I actually got emotional sitting in the interview with this young lady, and for her to have the freedom to speak freely about her journey with a potential employer. It was just absolutely amazing. So I'll finish this little section of what we do at Experience Strength with this. You know, I want to smash the stigma that's attached to addiction, but guess what? When you're real about it, there are organisations out there are employers out there are genuine people out there that also want to smash this stigma and will give people the opportunity. We're going to surround ourselves, Ron, with as many of these organisations as we possibly can. And if somebody is heading in the right direction and they're feeding the right wolf, we'll go into bat for them. We'll try and help do what you suggested that we do and try and find a way to give someone purpose. And to be able to give an individual who may be a single parent with 2 kids that they get every second weekend, but they can't pay their rent, put food on the table because of their past. If we can alleviate that and give them purpose, and give them a job, and give them a reason, and coach them through it and be there as a support mechanism, strap yourself in, Ron, because I'll have a red hot crack in this space. Let me give you the tip.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's got to be about. It really does. It's got to be about that, you know. And okay, I know from conversation with you that you had a story about a young lady just recently.
Yeah.
You know, to what you know, invaluable because, you know, I know this story. I've read the book, you know, many times, and I know how hard it is, but I also know the rewards. And what the rewards are, maybe you can explain that and the rewards to Experience Strength and your experience with doing it. It's quite scary.
I'll do the 30-second snapshot because Joshy's been playing more of a part with this story, Ronnie, than me. And my role with Experience Strength is to let people with the right skill set do what needs to be done. But long story short, Experience Strength randomly had an online inquiry come through. I can't remember which platform it was, but it randomly came through from 2 parents that were watching their daughter die.
Yeah.
Basically, they were watching their daughter die. They had tried everything, and these 2 people are resourced, educated, financially. They had tried everything they possibly could, but have no understanding or knowledge or no comprehension of the disease of addiction, which at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, unless it's been handed down and they refer to it as the baton of the family disease, if they have no understanding of it themselves, I couldn't begin to believe how parents can navigate, brothers, sisters, people that are attached to people like me navigating through that system. And I've experienced that myself. I had to have my brother and I've had to have family members do for me what I couldn't do for myself. And we were asked for advice. We were asked to support. We were asked to help when nobody else would take a call after hours or on the weekend when things got hectic and fucking real for this young lady. So long story short, we did what needed to be done, and we gave real life experience based on the fact that it was just that. It's not coming from a professional qualification or the medical industry, just what our experience was. We were able to navigate the early days with this young lady and her parents. And then we started to have a look at trying to get her into an accredited facility as quickly as what we possibly could, and have a look at the cost and what they'd be eligible for and they wouldn't be eligible for. And the waiting periods were off the show, Ron. And I thought to myself at that stage, what's the point in going and jumping and doing what we've damn well just done if this young lady's got to wait another 4 weeks on her own with no support? She's just going to go back to exactly where we just picked her up from. I ain't having it. So we as a group, not just Josh and I, as a group, you check out our webpage, you'll see who we're associated with and who we deal with, real life experience. We designed some programs that could be done remotely because this person was in a very remote location. And we basically put together some programs that could be done, and we touched base with her every second day, and we went through and provided advice and tools with real life experience. And to this day, I believe Joshy did another session with this particular young lady this morning. And we're talking about somebody that's been around and floating through for a long period of time. Now, one's turned to two, two's turned to three, and all of a sudden we're actually starting to be able to do what Josh did today. So I'll hand over to Josh because he's been the one doing it. And I really appreciate the opportunity, Ron, to tell this story because it's really raw and real for us, because the initial period of time, and I won't go into the ins and outs of that, but let's just say that the first 2 or 3 days, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, Ronnie, were pretty real, pretty raw, and pretty difficult. So, Joshy?
Yeah, so everything that we put together in a program for things like this comes from the fact that we have done it ourselves, whether it's the bad parts or it's the good parts. So I think the best thing is about these programs is that people come to us with the exact same problems that we had, that we've come to people for help with before. So all I'm doing is passing on advice that was given to me, and it's working for me just for today. I think the biggest thing we talk about is, and you brought it up before in reference to, once I put down the drinks and the drugs, that doesn't solve the problem. That actually makes it a hell of a lot harder to deal with what's happening in real life, in real time. And we simply talk about it on a level where I relate what she's going. She's, at her age, she's doing exactly the same thing as what I did at her age. It's not unique. It's not special. She's not a lost cause. She just needs guidance from someone who's been there before. And that's what we do. And whether it's guidance about coping behaviors instead of picking up, that's one thing, or whether it's guidance about, coping behaviors because we have very, very bad thoughts that go through our heads even when we stop. And it's about filling that void of addiction with good stuff. Because once I take all the drugs and alcohol out, there's a big hole that's left there, and I have to fill that with something. And it's got to be stuff that makes me better and puts me in a better frame of mind and helps me basically learn how to function in society, learns how to connect better with my family, basically helps me learn how to find something that I want to do as a career and pursue that, not work a job that I hate, that I'm going back to, which is a major reason as to why I relapsed in the first place. Learning to basically enjoy the fact that physical exercise and mental therapy can actually be fun. It can actually work, and that these are the things we talk about in reference to people that just need some guidance from people that have been there before. And we come down to their level. I don't talk like a doctor. I just talk like someone who's been there before and has gotten advice that's worked for me.
Yeah,
Nice step. Great summary, Joshy.
I'm probably the roughest counsellor in the world. I tell people, mate,
It works though. It works.
I tell people, I say, mate, I'll send you back your money, but I'm paying you to look. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm sending you back your money.
That's what I said today, Ronnie. The exact thing.
I've got your account number. I'll send you back your money. I don't need your money. I'm trying to help you. The reason I take people's money is so whenever I do it for nothing, they don't appreciate it. Addict mentality, the alcoholic mentality is, if it's for nothing, it must have no value. So therefore, there must be a monetary market to make them value that. And sometimes what I do, this is just me, and I'm in a good position because I have other companies. The money that I receive from that, I'll put to other people that need it more than what the other people do. You know what I mean? So it goes into this big cycle. It's like addiction and alcoholism. It affects everybody around us, that ripple effect. And recovery does the same thing. And I call recovery not taking drugs. Recovery is recovering something that we had inside of us, which is love, understanding, and forgiveness.
Yeah,
We're human beings first, we're male or female second, and we've got this affliction or addiction or compulsive behavior, whatever you want to call it. I'm not big on labels, but we have to break the stigma. It's not a moral deficiency. It's a real thing, you know what I mean? And that's the thing that I believe Experience Strength's going to be good at.
Hey, Ronnie, sorry, mate, just
All right.
one quick thing that's led on the back of this story that we've just shared with you. And again, this is just letting it evolve, just letting it, okay, what can we do to help? Where do we go with it? I'm not sitting here pretending we have the answers for half the inquiries that we get. We don't. But what we do is surround ourselves with people that can take us there. Ron, you hit the nail on the head. The best thing about alcoholics and addicts are alcoholics and addicts. The worst thing about alcoholics and addicts are the fucking alcoholics and addicts. You know, when you are ready to surrender, you're a chance. And if you're not at that particular point in time, then you may continue to do what you're doing. You know, there are so many. I remember just recently speaking at a group here in Tassie who saved my ass. They did the welfare check on me. And I was asked to go back and speak to all their staff. It was a powerful day and an emotional one for me too, because I was standing up in front of the group that saved me from ending it. And I asked the group, and there may have been 25 or 30 people in the room, Ronnie, there or thereabouts, and I just said to the group, I said, can I just see everyone raise their hands in the room that's, you know, either a family member or knows somebody or a friend or someone who knows someone who's got an alcohol or a drug problem, and I guarantee you that 19 or 20 hands went up in the room. You know, so there's 19 or 20 people that aren't actively alcoholics and addicts, but are involved with an alcoholic and an addict, and they're not educated. They don't understand, nor should they need to, because it's not them that are going through it, but they have to deal with it. They have to deal with the wreckage and the broken families and the broken promises and the socially unaccepted symptoms. Where I'm going with this, on the back of this experience, we've also engaged a couple of our family members who help and support Experience Strength, you know, two in particular that have got a wealth of knowledge and have some qualifications attached to them, and they're running family sessions. I never dreamed that this would be a road that we would travel down. However, the feedback that we're getting from mums, dads, sisters, uncles, aunts. There's one happening next week with a fiance of an alcoholic who just wants to understand what her man's going through. We're not going to try and give her any solutions to fix the problem. We're just going to try and give her a snippet of what this looks like. But it's powerful, Ron. You know, it is powerful, and the feedback that we're getting when somebody needs to understand this disease and they hear it real and raw from someone who's got it. And we don't sugarcoat it. We don't try to pretend that it's going to be bells and whistles and rainbow farts at the end of it. Here's scenario one, is the right good scenario. Here's scenario two, which is just as evident as scenario one. Strap yourself in for whichever way it goes. You know, I've got experience to be able to tell a family member of an addict or an alcoholic what I did, what I went through, how I was thinking, what my family did, what worked, what didn't work. I'm the son of an alcoholic. I'm the brother of an alcoholic. It's ripe. So they're really strong. They're very powerful. And if anyone's watching this podcast and they want to share it, or they know somebody who may be struggling with understand it, reach out to us. Reach out to us. We're here to help.
Yeah, cool. So, guys, this is from me and for me. I believe that to help somebody is to be human. To educate somebody, you first of all have to be educated. To teach somebody, you must be able to do. And I say it all the time. My little boy who's mad, soccer's mad, last year a guy turns up to coach him soccer, a guy from Melbourne, and he was the assistant coach. And I said to him, me being me, how long have you been playing soccer? And he looked at me and he said, oh, I've never played soccer. I said, well, how are you going to teach my son to play soccer if you've never played soccer? And he didn't know what to say. I said, how can you teach if you can't do? And this year he's not a soccer coach. He resigned. But the truth of the matter is, the therapeutic value of one alcoholic, one addict helping another is without parallel. The greatest words that I've ever heard as a recovering addict alcoholic. The therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. They're mighty strong words. They are mighty strong words. And you know what, guys, in the future, I see a good future for you. I know you're motivated. Thank you very much for coming and experiencing my podcast and sharing experience and strength to me. I'm a very, very grateful, recovering person. It doesn't have to be a 12-step program. I choose to do a 12-step program. Is there other programs? Yes, not for me. I don't care how anyone gets clean, but I'll tell you what it all starts with, experience and strength. Without the experience and strength, you ain't going to get nowhere.
I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.